Life is one of the heaviest beams that one can try to support. It is known to go through storms, heavy winds, and downpours. But you are built to stand and not collapse. I challenge you to grow out of your comfort zone. The biggest giant that you will ever face in life is your mindset. One of the biggest things that limit us and keep us defeated is the opinion that we have of ourselves. When I changed my mind, it changed my life. I didn't just survive, I bounced back better. I bounced back better. Bounce 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 back better.
You're now listening to LifeStruction with Eric.
Welcome to the LifeStruction with Eric podcast. I am your host, Eric. Welcome to the show. Take the time to share this out. We have a great guest with us today with a story that you do not want to miss. So take the time and share out this podcast. Matter of fact, text your neighbor, call your neighbor and say, neighbor, tap into the LifeStruction with Eric podcast. It's going to be a good one. I'm excited. Beyond excited. Today we have author Sha'carri Richardson with us. And she has a book that I tell you, went from the time that I opened it until the time that I closed it, was just like, I was just like pulled in. You know how you read something and you can read like the back of the book and it kind of pulls you in. But then once you get the book open and you go through that intro and then you read like a couple of paragraphs, and it's like, I wasted my money. But this one right here, I tell you, she has a story. And I guarantee you it's going to bless some people today. Great story. And I'm just honored to have her as a guest. I'm not going to keep keeping you guys in suspense. We're going to bring her on. Welcome to the show, Miss Sha'Kyra. How are you doing?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm good. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on and share your story. I am beyond excited, to have you on the pod today. You have your newly released book, Big, Black, and Ugly, or So I Thought.
That's my baby.
Man, yes. And it has went viral as quick. I mean, as quick as you can get them. I see they're all accounted for. Let's talk about this amazing read. What prompted you to write it?
So, I'm not an author. Well, obviously I am now, but prior to it, writing never was my thing. Like I never grew up thinking, oh, I want to be an author or write a book or anything like that. So I was just going through a very dark time a few years ago, maybe in like 2016. I was just, life was kicking my butt. Like your intro says, like you have those storms and like every day it was storming. There was never sunshine. And so I kind of just, something clicked in my head, like, I need to fix this. I don't know what it is, but I need to fix it. And so the best thing that I had at the time was social media. So I just started sharing bits and pieces of my story, like different snippets, nothing major. And the reactions that I would get would be crazy. I would get people inboxing me like, oh my God, I'm going through that now. How did you get over it? Or just different things. And this one girl, April, reached out to me. I didn't know her. We both moved to Phoenix, or we were living in Phoenix at the time. We still are. And she's like, hey, I know you don't know me, but I want to give something to you. Do you think we can meet? And I was like, stranger danger, but okay, let's meet. She gave me this apparatus or whatever it's called, that it's called Dragon Naturally. You just hook it into your computer, download it, and you speak into it. She's like, you're supposed to write a book. And I'm like, right. I hate that you wasted your money on this, but no, thank you. So a year went by and 2 years went by. And one day, like, I just was like, you know what? I think that I should write my story. And so I started typing, and it just flowed until it didn't.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. So she already saw the book in you before you saw it in yourself.
Yep.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Cause I tell you, like when I wrote my book, it was a few things that I was like, I don't need to include all of this. Pretty much when they put A, B, and C together, they'll be able to come up with D. But I mean, the way that your book was written, the way that you put that thing together, man, it was just like,
Man,
oh my
thank
goodness.
you.
I mean, it was amazing. It was amazing. And I mean, it's I'm just let's just keep going. Because first of all, I'm not gonna, if y'all think I'm gonna tell all of the book, you're wrong, because you're gonna have to buy it. So don't even think you're gonna get the whole book out of me and her tonight, because you're not. So I almost went somewhere, but I'm gonna keep that to myself. Yeah. Born and raised in Illinois, I believe it was. You were this beautiful chocolate baby with curly black hair. Everybody in your family loved on you. They fought to keep you. And
Yep.
then the day comes in third grade when this little third grader that you had a crush on, and you tell your friend to tell him, and basically what comes next basically just pierced the inside of you.
Yep.
Let's talk
Changed my
about that.
life. That little a-hole. He was just like appalled that somebody like me would have a crush on him. He called me black, crunchy black, like you name it. He called me that. And it was just like a joke, because although my family loved me, I won't say I was put on a pedestal like I just knew that I was the best thing ever. But I also didn't feel like, oh, woe is me, I'm so ugly. I never had either feeling. And so when
Right.
he said that to me, I felt like somebody had shot me with a 12 gauge. Because I'm like, first of all, I'm embarrassed. Second of all, I'm like, yo, being this dark, is that a bad thing? And so I feel like from that point on, my life just spiraled out of control before I even knew that, yes, I was hurt, and I was embarrassed and I was mortified, but I didn't really realize or understand the impact that it had on me until probably in my late 20s.
Wow. Yeah. And that's, when I read that portion, I could understand that, because in life, words or someone's reaction, they can affect you, but at the same time, you don't realize, how in depth it can affect you, but it will cause you to just like spiral out of control, and you really won't even know yourself. Why in the heck am I acting like
Yep.
this? You won't even know until you pretty much get down, like you talked about later on when you started to do that self inventory.
Mm-hmm.
And you were able to narrow it all the way down to the seed that was planted in your life, that toxic seed that
Yep.
caused you, to grow out and become uncontrollable. So
Yep.
basically, this broke you, and you went from low self-esteem to having no self-esteem.
Yep.
And I mean, you went as far as, because he called you black and ugly, you went as far as researching how to lighten your skin. Tell us
Yep.
about that.
Man, so it's so amazing the things that you go through that you kind of bury away that you don't remember. I was on Facebook maybe a few years back, and one of my childhood friends, I always talk about colorism online whenever I have the chance, just because it was so prevalent in my life. And I saw it rolling over into my youngest daughter's life. And so I always make a point to talk about colorism any chance that I get. And one of my childhood friends inboxed me after I made a post about it. And she was like, hey, do you remember that time you came to me and told me you had a recipe to make our skin lighter? And I was floored. I didn't remember having it initially. And then once you start going through the setting and what happened, and it literally came back to me immediately. And I was like, whoa. Not only did I feel comfortable enough talking to her about bleaching my skin, so we must have been having conversations, but on top of that, I was placing my insecurities into her even more than the insecurities that she had. So the same way that that little boy triggered something in me, I very well could have triggered something in her that never in her wildest dreams did she ever think about doing. Luckily, we didn't go through with it. I don't remember why, probably because the recipe that I had, I don't even know where I got it from, probably didn't work. But obviously, I'm still dark skinned. We didn't go through with it. But when she told me that, I felt so sad. But I was sad for her and her parents, because I'm like, man, what if she never even thought of that? Because I can't remember if we ever talked about being dark skinned and how it affected us. But like, I opened Pandora's box in her and in me. So I felt sad for me. I felt sad for her. I still can't believe that that was a conversation that we had in elementary school.
Wow. Yeah, that's not the normal conversation for
Yeah.
kids in elementary school to be talking about, how to, normally things like that go over our head. But,
Yep.
I get it because, I have kids in middle school now, and kids are cruel.
Man.
Kids are cruel.
Yes.
They come home one day and it's like, I don't want to go to school anymore. And I'm
Yep.
like, what happened? What happened? I don't want to talk about it. No, you're going to talk
You're gonna,
about it,
yeah,
because one thing that you're not going to do is go shut yourself up in your room
and
and think
internalize it.
you are less than anybody else. No,
Yep.
we're going to talk about it, and then 2 days later you come home. Oh, I had the best day ever at
Yep.
school. So, yeah.
Kids
So
can
it,
be very cruel, and they hit below the belt. I'm like, where do y'all,
yes,
like, they said what to
right,
you? Yeah.
right. Yeah. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Yeah. So, the first chapter of your book, who, like I said, guys, you have to get the book, because from the time that you open it until the time you close it, you're going to be in awe. So the first chapter of your book, I was almost a crackhead. Oh my God. It set the tone for the entire book. You described an addict, then you laid the foundation. You said, I have been evicted, wrote fraudulent checks, been homeless, lost my kids, got title loans, cars repoed, and everything in between. The only thing that was missing was the crack. She never did crack, y'all. She said I was almost a crackhead. But all of that happened and she never even used.
Never.
Like I said, I don't want to give away too much because y'all need to grab the book, but take us on this journey and let's talk about, the codependent path that you went down.
It was ugly. I know my mom was probably thinking, like, listen, at least if she did crack, it'll be a rhyme or reason behind why she acting like, just go get the crack, because we confused at this point. I honestly just feel like anything that I can sink my fingers into and grasp on, I was doing it, whether it was a person, whether it was partying, whatever it is. It was like I just went into overdrive with that thing. And I feel like a lot of it came from just being out there, as my mom would say, all willy-nilly. But I feel like, from friends, I didn't know how to manage friends. I didn't know how to keep friends. I didn't know how to be a friend. I was just screwed up for the most part. If there was things to be done that was negative, I was finding a way to get it done.
Wow. Yeah. And been there, done that. You know, I did all of that, but with the drug,
Wow.
so the drug was the reason that I acted out like that. But I mean, it's just crazy because, you know, your story is just a prime example of, how out of control we can get in life. And it
Yep.
doesn't even have to be because of you using the drug.
Yeah.
Sometimes, in your pretty much in your story, all I saw was you was chasing something that you feel that you didn't really grab, at an early
Yep.
age, and that was love. That was
Yep.
not from your mom, because your mom, oh my God, beautiful, beautiful from
That's
start to
my
finish.
rider.
She was always there for you, always
Yeah.
there for you. But I get it, and I'm sorry if I'm stepping on your toes, move your feet, but it was your dad,
Yeah.
and I get it, and I when I saw the part when you went to your big sister's graduation and what he said in his speech, I
Listen.
was like, come on now. I have three girls. And it's a way that you word things. It's the way
Yep.
that you put your words together. Like for my oldest daughter's birthday, I said to my favorite firstborn,
That's what my
you
mom
know
says.
so right, so it's the way that you put your words
Yep.
together. My favorite firstborn, my
Yep.
number one born princess.
I do
But
that
for you to
to my
say
kids. I'm like my
right,
favorite 14-year-old. My
right,
favorite 14
yeah,
year old. Yeah.
you only have
Everybody
one
has a space.
14-year-old, right?
Yep.
Exactly. It's a way that you word it, and for you to say, if I had to choose a favorite daughter, you would always be that one. And come on, come on.
Yeah.
I don't care how old we get. We can be 60 years old, and that could hurt,
Oh, for
you know.
sure.
I'm so proud how you acted at that moment, because like you said, you could have
Ooh.
easily you could have easily moved some furniture up in there and tore the place up, but in that instance you said, okay, it's time for me to move myself from
Yeah.
the equation, and you just exited the room, and
And
I'm proud.
it I feel like physically I exited the room, but it was weird the way that everything happened because I had been in so much trouble. I hadn't had a license in maybe 10 years. So I used to
Mhm.
always go to jail for driving with no license on a suspended license. So when I went there, I had this piece of paper and I knew he was going to be so proud of me. I'm like, listen, I paid $3,000 to get my license back. This is a step in the right direction. So he can, for once, be proud of me. Like I couldn't wait to
Right.
show him that paper. And it was just
Mhm.
like, my world came crashing down. And I already felt uncomfortable being there because he has all these friends that's been around for a long time with the church and everything. And they'll be like, who are you? You have a 30-year-old daughter? How did this happen?
Right.
Like, and
Right.
it made me just feel that more detached. So you're right. I was chasing, instead of chasing a high, I was technically chasing the high of love, even though
Mhm.
I got it from my bonus dad. He loved me like, even now, he is one of my biggest supporters. My mom, I got so much love from her, but that one little missing piece, I was always chasing it. Even now,
Mhm.
I find myself
Mhm.
like being like, man, he hasn't even said anything about my book. He hasn't even commented, like, and we're friends on Facebook. He hasn't shared anything. and he's pretty active. He owns his own businesses, and he had a video with Neo, and a lot of the ladies from Love and Hip Hop go into his store and purchase his items. And it's like, for the life of me, I just can't understand, because there is not anything that I wouldn't do for my kids to make sure that they are feeling loved, that they feel supported, whatever it is. So, I still find myself like, but it's easier for me to take a step back. Like, listen, this is not about you. This has everything to do with him. So it's easier for me to prevent myself from going through that motion again.
Right. Yeah. All right. Yeah, it's always hard when, it's especially parents. It's hard because all you want to be is loved.
Yep.
All you want to be is love. So yeah, it's definitely hard. But I was getting ready. Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. When we talk about kind of piggybacking off of the kid on the playground, in the 3rd grade, and this kind of led you down a road where you were seeking attention.
Yep.
And you talked about, you were taller, much taller than a lot of the kids your age. And one of the things was, like, at 10 years old, you would walk outside and you would get attention because of the figure you had at 10 years old. You would get attention from older people. And basically at 10 years old, for the first time, you experienced a sexual encounter that even was wrong and you didn't like it. You liked the attention. And this started you on a road of destruction. Where did this lead you to?
To hell. It literally sent me to hell almost, but no. So I was sexually molested when I was 10, 11, somewhere around that time, by a friend's older brother. And so I didn't like it. I was taken aback. I'm like, I knew I had these body parts, but nothing was ever like, I didn't look at them as sexual organs. I just knew that girls had this and boys had this. And so when that happened, although I hated it, I felt so disgusted. I was confused. But at the same time, it's crazy how your mind works as a kid, because I'm like, well, it was gross. I ran home, tried to get my thoughts together, but I found myself going back. And I felt like, if I am not worth anything, then why would he like me? Why would he want to touch me like that? Why would he want to do these things to me if I'm so big, black, and ugly? So maybe if I lead with the sex, then I'm kind of invisible to people and they can't tell me I'm ugly because they're interested in sex. And then that kind of turned into, first of all, I'm bigger than you, so you can't beat me up. So I'm going to start dating married guys or guys with girlfriends, because if you're willing to cheat on your significant other, then I got to be the bee's knees, baby. I got to be fine. I got to be beautiful. And I'm just going to give myself to you just so I can say, girl, he ain't nobody. I already had sex with him and he's married.
Wow.
And it started this ugly cycle, because if you find out, so what? You can't beat me up. I'm bigger than you. Let's start down. I ain't worried. When deep down inside, it literally came from the boy telling me I was ugly to the sexual molestation, tying those things together. Oh, I'm not really ugly. As long as I have something sexual to provide, they'll pay me some attention. And so that's where it took me for years. Either that or I'll buy you something. I'll buy you a trip. I'll buy you shoes. I was giving everything but myself to somebody to keep their interest in me. When in actuality, I didn't realize you're enough. You don't have to be sexual with this person. You don't have to provide them with anything financial. If they are not interested, that's on them. That has nothing to do with me. So that situation, it kind of snowballed into so many different things that were ugly.
Yeah. And from that snowball, basically your mom, she's, you're there with your mom, and she's doing everything that she possibly can.
Yep.
And finally she says, Sha'Kyra, enough is enough. I can't take this, and I'm sending you to stay with your dad until you graduate, and then you can come back. And basically going to live with your dad. He had literally uh, zero tolerance of any acting up. So
Yep.
now you're there with your dad, and you definitely didn't like it, and really you went there expecting to change, but basically you weren't happy there. So the
Yeah.
only way you knew to be happy was pretty much to do what you do. So it
Yep.
pretty much just continued.
Yep. And I didn't know what I was supposed to change. I had
Mm-hmm.
no idea. Like I knew I was getting in trouble and doing all these things, but I remember sometimes sitting in my room like, why am I doing? Like I don't understand. And one of my biggest things is when my kids are in trouble, why did you do that? Oh, I don't know. And I can
Mm-hmm.
relate so well to that because I have to take a step back and say, do you remember when you genuinely did not know what the hell was going on with you and why you were behaving like that? So
Right.
my mom was just kind of like, I hate your dad. Well, she doesn't hate him. She doesn't like the way that he treats me. So I know that you don't really like him, but I'd rather you go with him. Maybe he has a lot of money, he has more stability, maybe I can save you from the streets of Joliet, Illinois, which is right outside Chicago, because they can't have you. The streets cannot have you. So I'm going to send you with your dad and you fix you. Maybe this will provide you with the structure that you need. Maybe I'm failing you as a parent. She went so far as to question her own parenting to try and fix me. And so when I got to Atlanta, I was just like, I'm going to fix it, not having
Mm-hmm.
any idea what it was. And I felt like going to Atlanta saved my life in one aspect, but it also made me become so disrespectful. I see a lot of my friends or associates that I grew up with that are pretty much doing the same thing that they were doing years ago. So in that aspect, I believe that moving to Atlanta saved my life. I wouldn't have had that exposure to the Air Force, taking the ASVAB, different things like that. So it saved my life
Mm-hmm.
in that aspect, but it made me not respect my father even more. I didn't care about anything that he said to do or to fix about I just didn't care. And that triggered the I don't give a fuck in
Right.
me.
Right.
And so it just became like a disrespectful type situation. It was toxic. And I'm sure he was at his wit's end. I was at my wit's end. But one thing I knew for certain is that I can depend on my mom. And if she said that if I graduate, I can come back home, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that if I didn't do anything else, I had to graduate to get out of his home. So moving to Atlanta was a gift and a curse for me, especially when it
Mm-hmm.
came to my father.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that's what I got out of it as well. Because you keep returning back. There were a few times that you moved away, you went back, you moved away, you
Yep.
went back, and you had something. There was a little bit of positivity every time that you moved away. You
Yep.
moved away with a little bit of positive growth that you did experience while you were there. So,
Yeah.
so basically, when you take everything at the end and you started putting it together, when you started to do your inventory, you definitely had some growth parts from Atlanta, which you did grow on and basically help you to get, to the point that you really wanted to change.
Yeah, it was like puzzle pieces, honestly. I was
Mm-hmm.
getting them every now and again. And in like the first puzzle piece that I ever remember getting was trying to hook up with this guy after we skipped school. And he's like, girls aren't supposed to advance for making love.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And
Yeah.
so the icing on the cake for that is he was black, like black is midnight. And so for him
Mm-hmm.
to feel like, one, he can check me like, no, that's not what women or that's not what girls do. It was kind of like, oh, I've been doing this all wrong. And two,
Right.
everybody loved him. And it didn't matter. The women loved him. The men loved hanging out with him. And it didn't matter what color he was. It didn't matter that he was spooky black. And I can't say whether or not he had low self-esteem or if that bothered him. But on the outside looking in, he didn't have a care in the world. And so that was one of the first puzzle pieces that I collected that was like, man, he's blacker than me. He's more confident than me. And clearly he got way more common sense than I got. So that was one of the first things that I took along with me when I started taking my inventory. That was one of the first things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. So pretty much at this point right here, you graduate high school and you're happy, you get to go back with your mom, you start working for a while and then you decide, this job is not for me. I'm gonna go into the military. So you eventually go into the military. You eventually get pregnant with twins. You experience some toxic relationships. You experience some verbal and physical abuse. You were in relationships that you were the abuser. You lost much, almost lost your life when you delivered your twins. You had another daughter. Then your ex came and stole the twins while you were at work. Things got so bad that your mom eventually took your daughter in, after you had experienced, after he had came and got the twins. You kept getting second chances, but you blew them over and over. And every time you would hit a lower low, and, your mom and bonus dad was always there to rescue you. Tell us a little bit about that.
When people say it takes you to hit rock bottom to get your life together, it didn't even, rock bottom for me didn't even jolt me into desiring to change. The crazy thing is it took a lot of rock bottoms to make me want to change. And so I joined the military. I started working at Target as soon as I moved back because my mom's only requirement was you don't have to pay any bills. You can live here as long as you want to, but you either have to go off to college or you have to get a full-time job. And so I worked for Target and I just was like, this is not for me. I'm going to join the military. Had no idea what that meant. I was just like, they said they're going to give me some free money. Let me join the military because it has to be a better way than this. Not to mention when I got back home to Illinois, I feel like I was expecting it to be just like it was when I left. And so the fact that now I'm 18, I'm an adult technically. People have moved on, people have moved away, people have kids. It's nothing like when I left. And I think that was a culture shock to me, so much so that I was like, man, I literally dislike my dad, but I miss Atlanta so much. So I have a history of running. So my next move was I got to get out of Target. I'm just going to join the military. That was me running. As soon as I got in, a year, I started feeling free, but I still had those same toxic behaviors. I was sleeping with everything moving. And I just was an ugly person altogether. I didn't care if you had a boyfriend. I didn't care if you had a husband, I didn't care if you had a girlfriend. I didn't care if you had a wife. Nobody was off limits to my hurricane that I was coming through with. And so then I met this guy, he paid me some attention. We had twins. And so it just became a really ugly situation once I decided I was done. I had no business getting married, but to me in my head, my mom had a beautiful marriage. My bonus dad, which I call my dad or pops, they had a fantastic marriage. So I'm like, maybe I'll just get married because that'll fix everything. Got married and it was a disaster. For some reason, he remained bitter, decided that, we got into a quarrel. He wasn't helping. And I said, I'm going to put you on child support. And the next couple of weeks, he had formulated a plan. He dropped my youngest daughter off at my dad's office and my dad or my uncle let them carry them away. Without any questions asked. They didn't ask, why is your youngest daughter dirty? Why does she have different shoes on? any of that. They just was like, oh, okay, you can take them. And so that started another downward spiral. I had to call my mom, ask her for help. And I felt like at that point in time, I was just getting to a place where I was getting my license back and I had bought a new car and I was literally trying to get my life on the right path. And then as soon as I make the effort, it was like the rug was just pulled from under me. So my mom had to take my youngest daughter, and that is when the shit hit the fan. Suicide, yeah, I mean, you name it. I went through it emotionally, but for some reason, even the kids, I remember dropping my youngest daughter off, and on the way back, mind you, during all this time, I partied like you wouldn't believe up until my kids got taken. Like I had no idea what responsibility or being a good mother meant or looked like, even though I had a perfect blueprint from my mom. So you would think that happening to me would change something in me. But as soon as I got on the highway from Chicago back to Atlanta, I was calling my friend like, hey, let's go out. I'm free. So I still didn't learn my lesson with all of the rock bottoms.
Mm. Oh my goodness. And yeah, yeah, and it's just I was so in tune into you. You stopped talking and I'm waiting for more.
I was a hot mess and reliving it and reading it. I'm like, what in the was I thinking? Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
it's but that's the insanity of just doing the same thing over and
yep.
over, expecting different results, and it gets worse and worse
Every
each time,
single
each
time. It
time. But and it's crazy because every time we entered a new chapter, I could see, the growth in you, and you got your own place and you were working at the hospital and different
mhm.
things. But then each new chapter and you read along and you had that one plug that you would plug in, but I still was partying, but I
Man,
still was partying, but I still was partying. And yeah, it's until we get all the way to the root of, okay, I'm doing everything right, but why is this still
still happening.
happening to me?
And that's
You're
what I
not
was
doing
going to say.
everything right. You're doing some things
Some things
better.
right. And that's
Right.
what I
But you're
was
not.
going to say. It's crazy how the mind works because I'm like, see, when I do stuff right, I got a job, I got my license back, I got a car, and shit is still falling apart. So
Hmm.
I'm going to go back to my old ways instead of using that same amount of dedication to be a screw up, switching it and using that same amount of dedication to try and change these things as they're happening. I would just quit and be like, you know what? I'm not doing this. I'm done. I've tried. I'm damned if I do. I'm damned if I don't. And I would
Hmm.
rather party and live my best life until God
Right.
decides to take me out because I'm over trying. When in actuality, I literally only tried for a few weeks.
Right. Right. You know, uh, and it's that familiar term that we hear so much, and sometimes people say it, and you want to just smack them because you're like, you ain't never went through none in your life. How you gonna tell me God don't make no mistakes? God know what's best. Sometimes somebody's like, you've been living your best life for as long as I can remember. How
Yep.
you gonna fix your lips to tell me something like that? But it's like it was almost like, part of my heart got sucked out, and I felt your pain when you said the kids always would call you at a certain time every
Oh man.
day, and that day that you didn't get the call, but then you got a call that you wasn't expecting, and you found out that he had came and took the twins and dropped your daughter off at your dad's, and man, you went through an ugly time, and I can't even imagine it, but it was like a dark time that you went through. You ended up taking your daughter to your mom's, and you were driving back, and you said for a brief moment you actually thought about taking your life You
Yep.
pulled on side of the road, and you pretty much thought about stepping out in traffic. 18 wheeler was coming, and I know that very well when you're on the side of that freeway and that wind will basically snatch your door open.
Yep.
And you said at that moment, you grabbed the door and you pulled it shut.
Yep.
And, you wept for a moment and you got yourself together and you finished, driving on into the city. And it's crazy because when I read that, I'm like, sometimes when we're, at our lowest point in life and we feel like, well, I've lost everything pretty much that really I have a love for in life.
Yep.
Why am I even here?
Yep.
And at that moment when you're about to give up, it's almost like you'll have a life-changing moment. And at the moment that you grabbed that door and you pulled it shut, it was almost like you took your power back
Yep.
from everything that had been sucked out of you since third grade. You
Yep.
pulled that door shut and went back. That's when your self inventory started. And you started, what has caused me to act out like this for almost 20 years.
Yep.
What's the reason? What's the reason? And you eventually, you meet two friends, because it's funny how God would send people into our life, to try to show us some of these friends and some of these people that we've been connected to. You don't supposed to be connected to those people. And it's amazing how he starts sending people into your life. And sometimes it's people that's speaking into us, but we got this like, whoa, y'all
Yep.
been too nice to me, and I ain't even
Yep.
got nothing in common with y'all. Why y'all? Who sent you? Who
Yep.
sent you? This is a setup, but he sent people into your life, these two friends that you spoke about, and these ladies poured into you, and things started to fall in place. You started to do this self inventory. And one of the main things that you realized was the moment that your crush in the third grade called you ugly, you allowed him to steal your power.
Yep.
You also had the daddy syndrome, where all
Yep.
you wanted was for your biological dad to love you and love you like he did his other daughter.
Yep.
You were his first, and all you wanted was a love, but all you continued to see play out over and over and over was him to express pretty much his love for her, but never to you.
Yep.
So, you had searched for attention in all of the wrong places. But now, at this moment, you are vowing to make a promise to yourself to heal. And I
Yep.
love it when you said how you ripped off the band-aid and you started the healing process.
Yeah.
And that healing process was pretty much you putting on your big girl drawers and saying, I'm gonna own up to everything that I have done. But now it's time for Sha'Kyra to stand up and take a better stance and own my future. I have a purpose. So
Yep.
tell us about when you decided that, you were tired of living that old way and you were ready to change. How what was included in your change?
So it goes back to how you said, God sends people from the most strangest places. My friend Kaya, I met her through a mutual friend from the military. When I moved back to Atlanta for the 100th time, whatever number I was on, my friend Crystal ended up reaching out to me. Is like, hey, friend, I'm still living in South Carolina, but I have a really close friend that you would probably connect with. She just moved to Atlanta. You guys should exchange numbers. And so we exchanged numbers and we did a little bit of partying together. But I noticed that before we partied, her kids was taken care of. Her kids knew that, okay, today we gonna have mommy daughter time, mommy son time. All six of us gonna go out. We're going to spend that time together. And so these are just little jewels that I had began picking up along the way. And it made me, so I knew that I wasn't a good mom, but I didn't know what I lacked in until I met Kaya. Her son was disabled and she made a way. It didn't matter if she lost her job, if she lacked some hours from taking care of him. She made a way to make sure that they were eating, that they had hot water. There was a time when we didn't have any water in my house. She made sure that she'll go without, but she made sure that the kids were taken care of first and foremost. And so those little things, I remember one day we were walking in Walmart and I can't remember what we were going for. And she's like, oh, let's stop in the kids section. And I was like, okay. She's like, I think my daughter would love these. And she was picking out clothes for her daughter. And it dawned on me like, man, I always had the cutest outfits to go to the club, but I never really spent that time to say, let me make sure my daughter isn't going through this. Let me make sure at least she's going to school looking like somebody. And so that was another puzzle piece that I put together. And not once has she ever come over my house and it was filthy or the kids didn't have what they needed. She never judged me. It's like she taught me without even knowing that she was teaching me. And then I was heavy into Facebook and I was in these Atlanta groups meeting different men. And there was a tall post and it was like, if you're tall, 5'11", check in here. And my friend Keisha commented and I commented on it. And she's like, oh, we should go on a nail date. Keisha had her stuff together. Like she didn't have any kids, but she worked a great job. She went to college. She was able to manage partying. And she talked to me about saving. She talked to me about, just managing at life and not just existing in life. She showed me that you can have a balance. And again, she didn't even know she was teaching me these things. She showed me so much in the small amount of time. And we're best friends to this day. But awesome. Those two people, and my mom would always be like, why didn't you ever talk to me? And I'm like, well, you had everything going for yourself, an amazing husband, the kids, you love them. Like there's nothing you wouldn't do for your children. You had a house, you had great credit, you have credit cards, you were paying for your cars cash, right out with cash. I didn't feel like you would be able to understand me just because for me as a mom, you would be like, I didn't raise you like this. You're so much better than this. You need to do better. So I didn't have that comfortability in talking to her about these things because I felt like she couldn't relate. She just called me and was like, girl, I went out a lot, but your dad's siblings had you. So you didn't know that part of my life. She said, I could have related, or I could have, if you would have just come to me and express these things. But for me, it was kind of like, I know I'm already being judged. I'm judging myself now that I realize that I'm the toxic friend. I am the toxic friend. Although these things have happened to me, how long are you going to be the victim for? So it's okay to go through these things and people do things to you. But for me, it was almost like that was fuel for me because I had a reason to say, well, I'm like this because this. And this happened to me, so this is why I move this way. Instead of saying, this happened to me, let me look a little deeper and dig a little deeper and turn my being a victim into a victor. Because you can cry a little bit, but at some point, you got to pick yourself up and move forward. Because as long as you dwell in that victim mentality, you're always going to find things that aren't working in your favor that you're able to use to your advantage to say, I'm stuck because of this, instead of saying I was stuck, but I knew I couldn't remain stuck no longer. So I had to find a workaround. I took a left, then a right, and another left to get to my final destination. Whereas I'm just going in a circle, chasing my tail. I'm a victim. I'm a victim. I'm a victim. Then what?
Yes. Right.
So that's what kind of catapulted me into realizing, one, I'm the toxic friend. I suck as a friend. I suck as a daughter. I suck as a mother. I probably sucked as a wife too. I just sucked. And I feel like at some point in time, I was okay with sucking because I felt like maybe this is my calling. Maybe I'm meant to be the best type of sucky person that I can be. And I'm okay with it because guess what? Long as somebody paying me some attention, that was my drug. Attention was my crack.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I'm just so grateful that you figured out to stop playing the victim
Yeah.
and to figure out what was the root of it. You figured it out and you eventually bounced back. I cannot do this interview without shouting out the man behind the brilliant woman that you are now. Man, you met a man who is now your husband. I guess he's your husband slash manager. But
Yeah. I told
because
him
I
today,
because
I have my people call your people while you're at work and you can
yeah,
upload the
yeah,
video
yeah, yeah.
later.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell he's definitely your foundation. He stands behind you just in case you fall with his arm like this. He's definitely
Yep.
your supporter. So yeah, you met him. You guys are married. You got your kids back.
Yep.
So everything started to fall into place. You guys are building a great blueprint, and it's just amazing. It's amazing. And then after all of that, you write a book, and the book is just brilliant. If you could sum up everything that you learned, uh how would you summarize it?
I would probably summarize it as I had to get out of my own way. That's literally
Hmm.
what it was. We have a saying in the Black community, the devil is busy. No, 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 no. You busy.
Mm.
You're busy and it don't got nothing to do with the devil.
The doors of the church are now open.
The devil is busy. No, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
No,
You
ma'am.
are busy. I like
You
that.
are busy.
I like that. Yeah, I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah. So yeah, for anybody that's watching or listening, when you know it's you that's acting out, stop blaming it on the devil. The devil ain't busy.
The
You
devil
busy.
be having dinner like, I ain't even
Right.
do nothing.
I mean, look, today, God told me do not mess with you this
Yeah.
week. He wanted to see how you was going to act if I did not interfere. And you
Yeah.
doing just as much as I would do if I was there to egg you on. So
You gave
stop
me a day
blaming me.
off. You gave me a day off. I ain't even got to do no work. You doing it
Right.
all for me.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. That's too funny. Too funny. So there may be someone that's watching or listening right now that are currently where you once were. Uh, what inspiring words could you leave with them?
You matter. Despite
Mm,
what you did, what your past looks like, who you screwed over, it doesn't matter if you were a bad mom, a bad human being in general, if you did drugs, if you were an alcoholic, you matter. But you have to
mm,
matter enough to yourself. You can't matter to everybody else because I mattered to my mom. I mattered to my pops.
mm.
Like there was never a day that I questioned how much they loved me. You have to matter to yourself. That's it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then do the
That's
work.
beautiful. That's beautiful. That's it. And that is as short and powerful as you can put it. You know, Regardless of what you are going through, at some point in time, you have to realize, hey, if I didn't matter, God wouldn't keep waking me up every day.
Absolutely.
If I didn't matter, my conscience wouldn't be eating me up.
Yep.
So at some point you have to realize I matter and I have purpose. But like you said earlier, you have to stop, playing the victim
Yep.
and realize that you can be the victor. You can be victorious if
Yep.
you gain the determination to stand up for once and say, I'm not going to be defeated
Yep.
by my past. Do your self inventory and figure out what is causing me to act out like this. If you are a crackhead without the crack, then it's got to be, because if it's a drug, you know what it is. Put
Yeah.
down the dang drug. But if it's not the drug, okay, it has to be something far more greater on the inside of me that's causing me to act out like this.
Yep.
And I guarantee you, once you grasp a hold of it, you do that self inventory and figure it out, you will be inspired to climb out of that hole.
Yep.
But like Kyra said, first you have to realize, I have to stop being the victim and figure out that I do matter. That's
Yep.
that's a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. thank you so much
No
for the
problem.
interview.
Thank you.
Real quick before we go, man, I knew this was going to be good. I knew it was going to be good. But yeah, definitely, guys. Her book. Go to this link here. It's basically www.Kyra, the author, and pick this book up. Pick it up. Big, Black, and Ugly, or so I thought. I'm telling you, you will be blessed by it. And after you read it, pass it on to that
Yes.
friend or relative. Matter of fact, when you get yours, just go ahead and get it for them. Heck, it might be a late Valentine, but if you order it today, we lie anyway. I forgot to mail your package. No, you forgot to order it. I forgot to mail your package, but I finally made it to the post office and dropped it. Yeah,
It'll be
this
there
is
on
something
February
right.
19th.
Right. This is something you can use that for. I forgot to mail your package, but order it today and you can get it in the mail and then just tell them I sent you. The mail running slow, but it's coming. Yeah. But yeah, get that book, man. Get it. I'm gonna tell you, it blessed me. I read it, and I read it in two settings. I read it the first morning, and I had something. And the next morning, I'm like, I'm gonna get up at 6 o'clock, and I'm gonna be finished this book before I go to work.
Yeah.
And I got it
Thank
done. She's on social media on Instagram. Follow her on Instagram at Kyra the author, and on Facebook as well. It's Kyra the author. Basically, just type in Kyra space the space author on Facebook, and follow her. She has some great stuff she posts daily that would definitely bless your life. So yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. And matter of fact, I haven't posted it yet. The flyer will be up this weekend. The flyer will be up, but we will be doing the author and speaker event on March the 19th if you're in Phoenix. And Kyra is going to be one of the speakers. So
Be there.
now that you've heard her in action, now that's going to give you a better reason to come, to that event. But we will be posting about that here soon for that event. I'm excited about that. And my little journal here, you can go on my website and get this baby. And yeah, we thank you guys so much for coming on and hanging out with us on tonight. And with all that being said, you guys have a blessed rest of your week. And
Bye, guys.
remember, if you're going through anything, just keep in mind at some point you have to figure out, I can't keep playing the victim. I got to figure out that I do matter and push my way out of this. So thank you once again for coming on, and you guys have a blessed week.